do things in the beginning that are not scalable. Today, we've got over 220,000 members on the Realty Mobile platform. I certainly have not, spoken to the majority of them or even the minority of them. But in the early days, like it was me. I was picking up the phone. I was creating relationships. I was building trust. I was, sharing with people that we were here and we were serious. And so it's really those baby steps, and it's really those unscalable things that set us up in the beginning.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Jilliene Helman is the Chief Executive Officer of Realty Mogul and its wholly owned subsidiaries, RM Manager, Realty Mogul Commercial Capital, RM Advisor, RM Technologies, and RM Communities. That's a lot. That's a lot of things going on right there. She's been involved in investments with property values over $4 billion, including over 19,000 apartment units, and is a pioneer in real estate crowdfunding. Jilliene, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Hey, the pleasure's mine. There's 3 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show. Can you quickly tell us, where did you start? Where are you now? And how did you get there?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a really entrepreneurial family. We talked about business. We talked about real estate at the dinner table. So I think that impacted a lot of my experiences, being an entrepreneur today. I saw a gap in the market. So to have access to commercial real estate opportunities, you had to have a lot of money and a lot of connections. Right. And I wanted to find a way to give everybody access to these opportunities. So I founded Realty Mogul in 2012. Our mission is to empower people to live the lives they want by generating wealth through real estate. And we continue to execute on that mission. We started with a $110,000 duplex in Compton, California, which is a high crime market. And we recently worked on a $110 million transaction in Miami, Florida. So we've come a long way in the last, 9 years or so of founding the company.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple extra zeros on the last deal, over the duplex. Tell us in 30 seconds, or maybe even, I think you have even it down to like a 1-sentence, summary on your website. But what does Realty Mogul do?
Sure. So Realty Mogul is a digital platform for investors to invest in real estate transactions, and developers or sponsors, whatever you want to call them, real estate companies, to raise equity capital. So investors come to our platform, real estate companies come to our platform, real estate companies post their deals, and investors have the ability to sort of search through those and find deals that meet their, unique risk reward profiles. Investors can invest in individual transactions, so an individual apartment building, an individual office building, an individual, shopping center. Or we have 2 real estate investment trusts, which are diversified pools of deals that investors can also invest into.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Tell me the moment, when you knew you were onto something. I know you said you saw a gap in the market, but it's one thing to see a gap in the market and then develop a strategy to say, hey, here's how we're going to fill that. And then thirdly, of course, then to execute upon that strategy. How did all that take place?
Yeah, we did a bunch of customer discovery. So we just started calling on, people that we knew and people in the real estate markets and started asking, like, what's the hardest part of your job, right? And consistently, we were hearing from real estate entrepreneurs that the hardest part of their job was raising capital.
Sure.
They were finding deals, they were struggling to raise capital, and the markets moved a little bit, but this was back in 2012 where, we were still sort of coming out of the Great Recession. There was still a lot of fear from the '08 crisis. And then when I knew we were onto something, we'd launched the business. And at the time we were working out of my apartment and I was hitting the phones, right? So I was calling on clients and I would say, hey, I'm the CEO here at Realty Mogul, and I'm just calling to make sure that you're having a good experience. I want you to know that there's, a real person on the other side of this website. And I'll never forget, every day I would check the bank account. So how much money had come in, what had been invested. And there was $500,000 in the bank account one morning when I woke up, and I was like astounded, like who'd wired us $500,000? And so we looked in our tracker, and it was a guy by the name of Jack. And I called, our one employee at the time, and I said, hey, have you ever talked to Jack? And he goes, no, I don't know who Jack is. And I looked in our database, and there was no record of anyone having talked to Jack. So I picked up the phone and I called Jack, and I said, Jack, I'm Jilliene. I'm the CEO of Realty Mogul. I saw that you made an investment with us. I want you to have my personal phone number. If you need anything, call me. I mean, this was $500,000. I think our largest investment prior to that was like $25,000. And Jack said, the exact reason that I'm investing with you is because I don't want to have to talk to someone like you. Click. And it was astounding. It was like, wow, this is going to work, right? People are going to invest in the internet. They don't want to deal with salespeople. They want to, do it themselves. They want to set it and forget it. And that was sort of the moment, when I knew that we were onto something. We'd probably had, less than $1 million or $2 million invested on the platform at that time.
I think that's the best investor capital raising story I've heard. That's hysterical. May you have many more of those. I don't want to talk to you, hang up on you phone calls. We need more of those in this space. That's hilarious. So, early on though, I mean, I would imagine that there was some, gaining momentum with this, right? Finding the right sponsors to work with, vetting the right deals, and then being able to bring the appropriate amount of capital to those deals. I'm sure was a bit of a grind in the beginning. How did you kind of get that going initially where you had enough deal flow and enough money to actually put in the deals to make it worth everybody's time?
Yeah, it was baby steps. I mean, when we first started, we started with a $110,000 deal. That was our first transaction, right? And then we went from that to a $300,000 deal. And then we went from that to a $400,000 deal, and then a $500,000 deal. We got stuck at about $1 million. And we just kept pushing forward, every day. It's challenging even today. I mean, one of the big challenges is keeping the marketplace in balance, right? Do we have enough real estate transactions? Do we have enough investors to fill those real estate transactions? I mean, that's still a constant challenge and a constant conversation at the company, but it's baby steps every single day. In the early days, I was personally calling every single person who signed up on the website to give them confidence, to give them trust. I mean, now here we are almost 10 years later, we have a very lengthy track record that people can study. There's a lot that's been written out about us on the internet so people can find that. But in the early days, none of that existed. So, one of the things that I coach entrepreneurs on today is do things in the beginning that are not scalable. Today, we've got over 220,000 members on the Realty Mobile platform. I certainly have not, spoken to the majority of them or even the minority of them. But in the early days, it was me. I was picking up the phone. I was creating relationships. I was building trust. I was, sharing with people that we were here and we were serious. And so it's really those baby steps, and it's really those unscalable things that set us up in the beginning.
Yeah. And I think that was gonna be one of my questions for you, or, what were some of the keys early on to building Realty Mogul? And I think, you've just answered it. And that's in the automated set it and forget it world that we live in. That's not the answer people want to hear. Right?
It's hard work. Work. I mean, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well said. Can you give us a couple of maybe failures or oversights, in the last 9 years that you've had to recover from?
Oh, we've had so many sort of surprises and pitfalls along the way. I mean, in the early days, our website would crash, and that all needed to be fixed. We wouldn't have enough people to pick up the phones. People would go days without getting a response back. Today, our average response time is within 2 to 3 hours. If you leave us a voicemail, you send us an email. So we've built, those SLAs, we've built those processes, but those are the early experiences that shape you, right? Those are the things that make you figure out what's important and that shape the culture of the company. But we had plenty of, pitfalls and failures, and, thankfully, and this one is really critical. We've never, ever had money go to the wrong place, right? Our general ledger across the entire company is off by 8 cents over 9 years, which, just speaks to the level of detail. So, thankfully we've never had anything, like that happen, but there's been, minor pitfalls and minor surprises along the way. Many, many times. That's part of building a company.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So talk to us about, how Realty Mogul actually works, because you guys are not direct. You're not directly operating the deals, are you? Or do you guys also directly operate deals?
So we have 2 business lines. One business is our technology business, where real estate companies come to us and they can post their transactions on the marketplace. So we've got minimum qualifications, minimum underwriting standards that they need to meet, but they come to the platform. They run their transaction on our platform. Right. They have the ability to market to the investors that are in our database, but they're really running, their own offering, and we provide the technology and the administrative services for them to be able to do that. That's one of our businesses. Okay. We have another business called RM Communities, where we're directly acquiring apartment buildings. And most of those apartment buildings are being acquired for our real estate investment trust, sort of our pooled vehicles where investors can invest in a diversified pool of assets. And we use the technology platform. So that company is a client of the technology platform, the same way that third-party real estate companies are a client of the technology platform. And it's really cool because we eat our own cooking. So we can see what's working really well, what's not working, what's frustrating about the experience, where can we augment it, how can we do better? It's really helped us to hone in on that experience for the sponsors.
Sure. That makes a heck of a lot of sense. When the capital is raised on the Realty Mogul platform, does it go into an SPV, and then that SPV then it ends up being a limited partner, or does it go directly into the deal to the sponsor? How does that flow of money actually go?
So again, sponsors use Realty Mogul to use our technology platform. We don't structure those entities for them. So it's really up to a sponsor. Different sponsors structure their offerings differently, but most commonly they'll create a downstream entity or a special purpose vehicle specifically for the investors that they work with on the Realty Mogul platform. And then that entity itself will invest into the title holding entity that owns the real estate.
Right. And then I guess last question on that is, how do you guys monetize that transaction?
Sure. So first of all, we have a technology fee. So we're a technology company. If we're working with third-party real estate companies, we charge a technology fee. But probably more importantly, we stay on for the life of that transaction as an administrative services provider. So we want investors to have a single point of contact after a deal closes. So we process all of the reporting. We send all of the K-1s. We process all of the distributions. Those are all part of our administrative services that we do for sponsors so that investors have a really consistent experience and so that we have a second set of eyes on all deals. So we have, access to all the financials, access to all the reporting. We can answer, the majority of questions that come in. Sometimes there's, something that can't be easily answered, in which case we'll liaison with the sponsor to get it answered for an investor.
Right. And a common question or objection, I would say, that you would probably, I would imagine that you guys have found a way to overcome is, once the person figures out who the sponsor is, why don't they just go direct to sponsor?
Yeah, look, I think that if you add value, you should get paid, right? That's my belief in life,
Sure.
Holistically. And so it's up to us to be continually adding value, right? One is we're vetting those deals to make sure that they meet minimum requirements. We've had plenty of sponsors who have come to us. We've done our first deal, and suddenly they think that every subsequent deal is going to meet our minimum requirements and our underwriting guidelines. It's just not the case. So, maybe we do deal 1, deal 2, but deal 3 and 4, don't meet our criteria. The investor's not going to know that, right? We don't publish the deals that we decline. We only, publish the deals that are approved and get on the platform. So I think that, I think that's one piece of it. I think the other piece of it is having a second set of eyes on transactions. And I'll give you a specific example, and it's sort of a sad example, but it's an example. We had a sponsor who, their policy, which was not written and was not disclosed, was that every year they would make a donation out of every single property to charity.
Oh, wow.
And never disclosed, wasn't included in the financial model. I love it, right? I love that you're donating to charity. That's an amazing, amazing thing. And it's completely illegal. It was not disclosed. It was not included. Investors were not made aware. They didn't, invest in that transaction knowing that. And so that's an example of something that we caught and we said, hey, we love that you're donating to charity, but unwind this, this has to come out of your parent company. It has to come out of some other pool of capital. It can't come out of this entity. Right. We've had other issues where, sponsors have calculated the distribution of proceeds incorrectly, right? And we do a second set of eyes on that, and we'll go back to them. And it's happened in both directions. It's happened where it's accretive to the investor, and it's happened where it's accretive to the sponsor. So I don't believe that either were fraudulent or either were intentional. They just were what they were, right? But we're a second set of eyes on that. We're also always available. So we have a very large team of investor relations representatives who are familiar with these deals. Again, our standard response time is 2 to 3 hours. Sponsors can't handle that, right? Sponsors can't handle having 50 investors coming to them for questions. Their infrastructure typically is not built out to provide that. So I think that those 3 buckets are where investors see a lot of value for us. 1 is the minimum requirements, minimum qualifications. 2 is our second set of eyes. And then 3 is, the standardization around answering questions, having one place to go download your K-1s, having one place where distributions are coming from, having one place where, you can download all of your reports across sponsors and across different deals. So we try and standardize as much as possible.
So, I love what you guys are doing. I love the way that you put this stuff together. Talk to us about how maybe, or something the sponsor has done that you say, hey, this just doesn't float or this doesn't fly. What are some red flags for you when sponsors bring deals to you and you guys just, say, no, this doesn't work right out of the gate? What are some immediate red flags?
Look, on the sponsor side, it's, if the sponsor's track record is multifamily in Phoenix, Arizona, and they want to go buy a retail deal in, Miami, Florida, that's a no, right? So we're looking for sponsors that have expertise, in the asset class, ideally in the market, or there's some reason or some insider knowledge that they have in the market. We'll see a lot of sponsors who are first-time partners come. So 2 different sponsor groups, they're partnering up together. I strongly dislike that. I mean, I think that, there's all kinds of things that can happen in partnerships, even if they're independently two great partners. So in a scenario like that, we want to see it being very clear that one partner has control. Like there's none of this 50-50, controls across two sponsors. It's just a recipe for disaster. On the deal side, it might be just overly aggressive assumptions, right? I mean, if you're coming to us and you're assuming 10% rent growth for 5 years in any market in the country, that's an automatic no, right? If you're assuming less than 5% vacancy in any market in the country, that's an automatic no. I mean, you got to turn units, right? There's vacancy when you turn units. So things like that are red flags. Every deal is a little bit different, right? So there's no sort of standardized real estate deal. Probably a multifamily value add deal or a multifamily stabilized deal is about the most homogenous deal that you're going to get. But even then, you've got nuances by market. So, some of those egregious ones, though, are really high rent growth, really low vacancy, operating sponsors who haven't done business together.
Have you guys changed, with the last 18 to 24 months, have you changed or altered what you guys find is acceptable underwriting in any meaningful way?
Look, you always have to be shifting because the market is shifting, right? So I'll give you a prime example there. Prior to probably around 24 months ago, we'd never done a development deal. So we'd done heavy value add, we'd done opportunistic business, but we'd never posted a development deal on the platform. And the reason that we changed sort of our underwriting criteria there, or minimum qualifications there, is because by buying stabilized assets in some markets, it was cheaper to develop or almost as expensive to develop, maybe slightly more expensive to develop as it was to buy an asset that was built in 1990 or in 2000. So would you rather have, 20-year-old product or 30-year-old product or 40-year-old product, or would you rather have a brand new product? So the market moved, right? And as a result of that, we thought the development started to look really interesting. And so like, that's an example, right? We're always iterating. Nothing's off the table. The market moves. You have to stay flexible. But that's a specific example of where we changed our minimum qualifications.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're seeing lots of that where the cost to build might be the same or 10% more for a brand new product than buying something, like you said, 20, 30 years old. It's like, I would be happy to pay a 10% premium for a brand new product,
right,
than buy something 20 years old. Talk to us. What's the biggest challenge you would say that Realty Mogul is facing right now?
Oh, war for talent. We're growing rapidly, and it's challenging to hire. I mean, this is an amazing, amazing market for talent, and it's great, right? People should, as I go back to my philosophy, people should get paid, right? People should get paid for adding value, and our team adds a tremendous amount of value, and we're looking to add, and it's challenging. I think we've done a really, really good job of making Realty Mobile a competitive place to work. First and foremost, just our culture. Like we are so maniacally focused on team. We're so maniacally focused on culture. That's more important than almost anything. But it's challenging. It's challenging to hit our hiring goals. I don't want our team to burn out. Like we are not a hire people and spit them out 2 years later kind of shop. I mean, I've got folks who've been with me, 7, 8 years, 6 years, 5 years. I mean, very longevity at the company. But it's challenging to hire the right people in today's environment. It's really a good time for employees.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's one thing that you would like to change about your business or yourself in the next coming year?
I don't know that there's anything specifically about our business. I mean, I think that we just want to grow, right? So we don't, no surprises, right? I mean, we just rolled out our 2022 strategic plan to the team, and the theme was sort of no surprises. Like we know what we're doing. We add a lot of value to investors. We add a lot of value to sponsors and to real estate companies. Let's do more of it, right? Let's scale. So scale the business is kind of the main strategic priority. The other one is perfect the basics. So let's get the basics right. Let's move from, every single voicemail being picked up within 24 hours to every single voicemail being picked up within 12 hours. Let's move to, people knowing that we are predictable, right? And we're the predictable company that's going to communicate on time and that's going to communicate proactively. So, those are the types of things on the business side. I think on the personal side, I'd love to get back into a like very regimented meditation practice. I'm one of those people who probably gets to meditate, twice a week. It's typically on the weekends. I still really haven't figured out how to, pause the emails and the texts and the Teams messages and all of that first thing when I wake up in the morning. So, that always feels a little bit crazed, but I'd love to find a way to solve for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love that. Jilliene, thank you so much for your time today. I certainly appreciate it. It was great to learn about Realty Mogul, what you guys do, how you do it. Final 4 questions for you is this. What's one tool or resource that you find you can't live without?
Look, other than a cell phone, which is probably the obvious one, I think it's a pen and paper. Every Sunday night I have this ritual of like sitting down with a pad of paper and a pen. I've got all these moleskins, like lined up on my bookshelf, and I take that time Sunday evenings to just write out like what's the most important thing for me to accomplish in the upcoming week.
Right.
Like who on the team needs praise, who on the team's done a great job that I want to reach out to. What are the most important roles that I need to be involved in hiring for? What are the major upcoming decisions? What are the things that I need to do to give direction to the team so they can be set up for success? And that time sort of away from the computer and going back to pen and paper is really sacred time for me to make sure that I'm focused on the right things and the right priorities.
That's great. I love that. When it comes to investing in the world, what's one thing you're doing right now to make the world a better place?
My second passion outside of real estate is healthcare. I sit on the board of a company called Next Health, and the premise behind Next Health is keep people healthy. So avoid sickness. So keep people healthy before you get sick.
Right.
And it's also very tied into functional medicine. So treat the root cause of disease as opposed to, the symptom of disease. And I think that education is so critically important. I mean, I think our healthcare system is so broken. We throw drugs at the problem. People widely, for some reason, don't believe that food is the greatest medicine in the world. And it is, right? Like what you put in your body is what you use to fuel it. And so I think my involvement in the future of healthcare and the future of medicine hopefully will change the world. I mean, that's the intention. And I'm very, very passionate about it.
That's awesome. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, Realty Mogul, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, go to realtymogul.com. If you want to get in touch with me personally, find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active and would be happy to connect. But realtymogul.com is the best place to go. Create a user account. It's free to sign up. You can start seeing deals. You can see open investment opportunities. You can learn a lot. We do a lot of deals. We have a lot of deal flow. So we have folks who will call me and say, I didn't know much about real estate before I joined, and now I've seen 50 deals and watched 50 webinars, and I feel like I know the nomenclature and I talk the talk, which is great.
Right. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I do appreciate it.
You got it. Take care.
Hey, thanks for listening to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate podcast. If you can do me a favor and subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever platform it is you use to listen, if you can do that for us, that would be a fantastic help to the show. It helps us both attract new listeners as well as rank higher on those directories. So appreciate you listening. Thanks so much and hope to catch you on the next episode.